Please feel free to adjust the playback speed to 1.25 or 1.5 depending on your preference.
He reminds the bastard about who really left the other party to die in the first place. Also, he even became responsible for uncovering their location. The hunters are left wondering who it is, but Jin-Woo easily calls out the Ice Elves for wastefully camouflaging despite possessing a strong presence. The Ice Elves unmask themselves as Jin-Woo feels a chill run down his spine. That's because he's taken note of the boss monster who is here with 20 of his men. The monster is capable of speech and finds himself impressed to see a skilled individual among the hunters. For some shocking reason, Jin-Woo is able to comprehend the creature's speech, which strikes as a surprise to their leader. It even comes as a shock to himself and causes He-Jin to wonder if he's capable of speaking their language. The only medium for this seems to be the system. The leader is glad that they can at least talk, and he's been meaning to introduce him to someone. It's the same scumbag who shot the arrows and informed his group about the powerful hunter. He wants to personally fight the hunter. But before that even happens, our boy has already taken off his head without even breaking a sweat. With the freak showdown, he asks if their leader has an additional request to make. Impressed by the hunter's strength, the Ice Elf leader draws a sinister smile. The blades clash and from one strike, Jin-Woo assesses that their leader won't be so easy to beat. The Ice Elf leader pitches an offer that might work in their favor. But before that, he's dying to know something. He drops the bombshell that Jin-Woo isn't even a human, so there's no point for him to be around them. The Ice Elf laughs at his ignorance and expresses that every monster hears a voice in their head, a voice that commands them to kill humans. However, those voices are gone when encountering Sung Jin-Woo. This makes him wonder if it's a similar system, but for the monsters. Maybe the voices aren't working on Jin-Woo as it classifies him as a player instead of a human. The leader emphasizes that they seriously don't have a real reason to fight. After all, it would only promise unnecessary losses from both sides. They're happy to let him go as long as he concedes the rest of the hunters behind him. If he does that, the Ice Elf will make sure that Jin-Woo makes it through. Before proceeding this time, the hunter asks the question. He wants to know who these monsters are and why they're hellbent on killing humans. Just as the Ice Elf is about to tell him this important information, his body staggers as he repeats the same exact sentences he said a minute ago. Jin-Woo doesn't get what's happening and wonders if they're not allowed to say sensitive information. He declines the offer this time directly, causing the Ice Elf leader to remind him that he's outnumbered against his men. The word outnumbered amuses our boy, and he thinks it's best for these ice bastards to recheck the situation they're in. Dozens of shadow soldiers resurrect from the ground, giving the creeps to the surrounding hunters. They can't believe that Sung Jin-Woo is responsible for all of these monsters. Impressed once again, the Ice Elf thinks it's nothing more than a gimmick, but Jin-Woo suggests they take it seriously. His army clashes off against the Ice Elves as the war begins. The rest of the hunters exit the battlefield under He-Jin's command. Jin-Woo rethinks about the elf's words and analyzes that their leader must know about the mana depletion drawback of his summoning. Even if these guys are immortal, they will be destroyed again and again. Even though a bunch of them can stand their ground, the real issue is their leader who is casually slicing them down. It's clear that he's stronger than even Jin-Woo at his current level. And it's likely he might come up short. His typical army will prove to be useless in this case. So that's why Jin-Woo's only option is to resurrect a stronger shadow, that being the honor's body. Baruka introduces himself by name and asks for Jin-Woo's respect. Their fight begins as Jin-Woo leaves a sword in Kim Chul's care. He leaps up in an effort to cut down Baruka, but his attack misses. The Ice Elf tries to stomp his blade, but the blade disappears and reappears back in Jin-Woo's hand. He wanted to catch Baruka off guard with a surprise attack, but the Ice leader casually blocked it without trouble. Jin-Woo brings forth his second dagger, which also gets blocked. He receives a heavy kick to his side, causing him to retreat. The attack hurt as he gains his distance. Baruka finds himself excited after a long time. He sees a gigantic fireball descending from above. It's thanks to the mage who brought down some hell. The attack did connect, and that was Jin-Woo's intention all along. As for the scumbag A-ranker, he's barely getting up, remembering that it was our boy who slapped the out of him. He sees a sword and is consumed by bloodlust. Back to the fight. Despite the wave of hellfire, Jin-Woo thinks the attack couldn't have taken Baruka down. That's exactly what it appears to be. The confident Ice Elf lunges forth in a psychotic manner, but for Jin-Woo, he's waiting. He-Jin calls out for our boy, alarming him about the murderous Kim Chul just about to attack him. Now he's getting attacked from both sides, causing Baruka to become overconfident for just 1 second. Turns out this is the exact situation Jin-Woo plotted for himself. He brings out Igris as his trump card at the last moment and uses him to pierce the honor's body. Kim Chul vomits blood, nearing his death while cussing out the one he underestimated greatly. Everything was planned and Jin-Woo knew that from the beginning. With this guy taken down, Baruka thinks this little plan won't make any changes. However, Jin-Woo knows what he's done. The final puzzle piece is his command, arise. Igris tries to swing at this freaky, but he dodges impressively. It doesn't matter, as Jin-Woo has gotten what he wanted by resurrecting Kimcha's shadow successfully. His size is a thing to comment about since he's a tank-class warrior. Jin-Woo thinks it's only appropriate to call this guy Iron as it's convenient. As for Barua, this dude is so strong that he beats Igris without breaking a sweat, even mocking the hunter's attempt to beat him with a single shadow soldier. Jin-Woo expresses that he's got no intention of doing that. Iron releases a provocation ability, causing the dungeon boss to get overwhelmed and target him from the get-go. However, Iron is impressively holding his own against the leader of the Ice Elves. Barua, on the other hand, thinks that Jin-Woo has made a fatal decision, relying on a stupid refrigerator of a shadow soldier. But Jin-Woo ramps up the intensity and decides to bring more shadow soldiers into the fight. Songi is getting a first-class experience of what a true hunter battle is like, but even Hyjin thinks that it's an unusual occurrence. They even start to question their own senses if what they're seeing is right. Back to the fight. Igris is back in the flow, and he's just trying to murder this bastard elf now. Barua dodges him but gets stabbed by Jin-Woo in his blind spot, quickly activating the paralysis effect to kick in. The hunter is impressed that Baruka is getting outnumbered and still holding his own against them. He leaps away to gain some distance while the leader of the Ice Elves manages to cancel the effects of the poisoning. Jin-Woo argues that he shouldn't complain and offers a good view of his surroundings. When Barua inspects what's going on, he realizes that every last one of his men has been taken down. This causes him to be pissed even more as he lashes out, attempting to annihilate Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers to cause his doom. In response, Jin-Woo tosses his blade in an unusual fashion, causing the monster to laugh in hilarity. However, this didn't know that Jin-Woo also has Commander's Touch, a telekinetic move that allows him to accelerate the speed of the blade he just threw. Baruka barely blocks it, but it takes out his weapon in one swoop. Then, Tank comes up from behind while he's dazed and makes sure to hold him still. The mages of Jin-Woo's army combine their powerful spells to descend a column of flames. When the dust settles, Barua's clothes are torn, and he's in terrible condition. However, he's even more provoked than last time and declares that he'll kill them all. Then this fearsome foe feels a sharp stab to his side. The assailant reveals himself to be the hunter Sung Jin-Woo, who concealed his camouflage ability until the very last second to deceive his opponent. His blade is still plunged into the elf's body. Barua attempts to grab his arm and punch him, but there really isn't anything he can do here. As Iron whips a full swing of his hammer and crushes him to the ground, Jin-Woo emphasizes his point that the fight really is over. As a consequence, he receives 2 level-up rewards for clearing a dungeon boss. It's a fight that put Jin-Woo on edge because it was a tough battle. As for his newest shadow soldier, Bro is just hammering away at the corpse of the boss monster like crazy. Jin-Woo thinks this dude is a stupid musclehead even after his death and quickly realizes that he'll be hard to manage. Even Igris leaves Iron in disbelief. But don't worry, he finds new underlings, being the foot soldiers, as they celebrate together. Jin-Woo thinks it's about time for them to leave as the portal diverges open. He points to their exit as the rest of the hunters celebrate in joy for being able to return home at last. The only thing left is for Jin-Woo to handle Barua's corpse. Outside, a few hours have already passed, which means a week inside the gate for the hunters. The managers want their guild master to take some rest, as they'll be here to take points. However, Yunho is a responsible man and feels it necessary to wait until morning. Suddenly, the red gate reacts and finally carves open, marking the end of the dungeon. The hunters are at last seen exiting the gate with Yunho believing that Kim Chul pulled through. The first comers are Hyjin and Kijun, who are just happy to have come out in one piece. The second comers are Jin-Woo and Sani, which means the manager's bets were placed on the right guy. The gates wrapped up, but Kim Chul is nowhere to be found. Hyjin is disappointed to explain that they are the only survivors. Yunho can't believe that the lowest hunters were the ones to return from the dungeon, with only a B rank surviving. Jin-Woo doesn't care and wants to drop Songi home as he feels responsible, but the guild master grabs his shoulder, claiming that they need to talk. The hunter doesn't give a damn as he's exhausted, and instead, he points to the other guild members to tell him what happened. This attitude of the E-rank hunter ticks him off as he grabs Jin-Woo's shoulder again, introducing himself as the leader of the guild, threatening the hunter to reveal the information. Yunho simply can't digest how they lost 9 guild members. Jin-Woo thinks it doesn't matter, not even a little, and argues that he was still able to retrieve 3 of his guild's hunters, so he earns a piece of his gratitude instead of anger. Yunho apologizes for getting ahead of himself and lets him go. Both are seen entering their car as Yunho turns to Haijin for an explanation. He doesn't understand why Jin-Woo is so mad. Haijin explains that he's been like that after he beat the dungeon boss and uttered a command in front of the corpse. The manager explains that it's not because Jin-Woo is a bad person or anything, but rather he must be tired. Yunho is seriously shocked that they haven't been able to recruit this guy into their guild. After all, he could challenge the guild master just now, which is enough to prove his worth as a potential recruit. Yunho wants this guy to go 100th of the way into recruiting this hunter no matter what happens. As for our boy, he's seriously tired driving his way home. Unfortunately, he was unable to recruit Barua due to the sheer difference in their power levels. Still, he could grab the boss monster's dagger, which is a crazy strong attacking weapon. He drops off Sani and praises her for her efforts. Just as he's leaving, she surprisingly calls him by name and thanks him for everything he's done. Jin-Woo doesn't get what she means by next time until he looks at the clock and sees that it's nearly sunrise. He thinks it's best for him to return to dungeon raiding with Jinho, which is what happens the next day. Our boy simply can't fathom that Jinho is dressed up like a rich gladiator with his S-tier equipment. He joins the van and is surprised to learn that they're going to pick up Sani. Jin-Woo calls her and expresses that they'll give her a ride. Jinho is shocked and already speculative of the fact that his bestie over here might have gotten into a relationship.
We will finish this chapter here. Next chapter will be out soon, so stay tuned.